So the alternatives framework came about after a few years of engagement with the resistance and alternative movements. There were our organization and others who were involved with these movements who were trying to understand how coherent and how holistic these alternatives were. Were they really addressing all forms of inequity, all forms of injustice, all forms of violence, or they were only focusing on one particular context that they are working with? So if you're fighting for rights of indigenous communities, so it's only about ecological rights or establishing your rights, but it's also about rights of women, rights of nature, or is it also about establishing more sustainable livelihoods? Is it also about political strengthening? So a few people got together and they decided that there needs to be a kind of framework which helps us understand how holistic our alternative initiative is, and that's where this framework comes from. It talks about 5 main spheres. The social sphere, economic sphere, political sphere, ecological sphere, and cultural sphere. So the idea is that people who are involved in resistance movements and alternatives sit together and reflect how their movement or initiative is impacting all these different 5 spheres, and then see if it is not really addressing any of the other, or if suppose I am fighting for my rights but that resistance is actually leading to ecological degradation, then how do we address those gaps? We started with a lot of resistance movements, as I said, but we also realized that resistance needs to eventually also start thinking about creation or alternatives, because it's not enough to just resist. People get fatigued, people get tired. So we are actually engaged with a lot of communities which have both from very direct conflicts, but also very indirect sort of hidden conflicts have emerged and started processes towards alternative. With one village, which is a tribal village in central India, which has been for last 20 years trying to transform both themselves and systems outside, because when they started wondering, when they were getting tired with their resistance, they realized that they actually needed to look at where were all this coming from and how could they actually transform the systems, that they don't have to continually resist. And they realized that those weaknesses which were causing the troubles were coming both from within the community, within the individuals in the community, and then outside the system, the larger system that they were fighting against. So they created something called a reflection sort of space for the community, where they would just come together and talk and try and understand where are their weaknesses. And this is where they realized that those kind of reflective spaces were extremely important, and they set in a place, place for their village, a consensus decision-making process, and also what they call the study circles. So now they have a system in which the entire decision-making is entirely inclusive. And they're very informed. They make sure that they first understand what they're trying to make a decision against, and once they have made the decision, then they resist for the systems outside to ensure that those decisions are implemented. So it's a very, very inspiring case for us, and one of the iconic examples.